letting some more people join in. So hi everyone, my name is Ashley. I work at Didax. I am a marketing specialist there. Some house rules for the webinar today. So obviously you guys are familiar with the chat box that you guys are using right here. Please feel free to use that throughout the webinar. If Matt is asking questions, reaching out to you guys to interact and engage. He's also going to have some polls throughout the webinar for you guys to really connect with his presentation. So please feel free to use that as well. And then there's also the Q&A tab on Zoom. So if you have any particular questions, either I can answer them in the moment while Matt's talking, or we can take it at the end and Matt can answer it live for everyone after he has finished his presentation. We are giving away a free online professional development course, which is brand new to Didax. Matt will kind of be going through it a little bit more, what we have to offer. So the way you'll get in the running for that awesome giveaway, that awesome prize, is for your interaction throughout the webinar. So please feel free to use that chat and engage in those polls, and that will put you guys in the running to win. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this off to Matt to handle and take over, and we can get started.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. So really excited to see you all here today. As Ashley said, my name is Matt Christensen. I also work for Didax. My background, I was a high school math teacher and a K-12 math coordinator in Colorado for several years, and then have worked in a variety of different fields. Done a lot of work with teachers in terms of professional development and training, and really love to talk about manipulatives and to talk about math. And this is, kind of my thing. So that's a good thing. So I'm excited today to kind of share some things with you. As we get started today, I'd like you to take a moment. This is your first thing in that chat tool, and just tell us how you're teaching right now, or if you work in the district office, how your teachers are teaching right now. Are you face-to-face? Are you virtual? Are you hybrid? Is it something else, some other model that's going on? And while you're doing that, I'll tell you, I know for my children, where I live, they're in school 4 days a week, and Friday is a virtual learning day, but we're pretty much completely online and have been since beginning of October. So we know everything is different and everybody's kind of in a different place with that. And that's kind of what I want to get that feel for. I'm seeing a lot of you are virtual, 100% virtual, and some mixed and hybrid, not a lot of total face-to-face yet. And that's okay. So we will be recording the webinar today. I know I've seen a couple questions about that. So this will be recorded, and Ashley will be sending out a link to that after the webinar. So just be aware that if you do have to leave early for some reason, you'll be able to get that recording and watch anything that you have to miss. So thank you for your participation with that question. So really what we want to do today with this webinar is to help you learn about some of the Didax virtual manipulatives, and talk about some recent updates and additions. You may be aware of our free virtual manipulatives, and that's great if you are. We want to look at some strategies for using 3 different tools. We're going to look at Unifix, cubes, 10 frames, and the Reckon Rec today, and how we can use those to help build number relationships, some operations, some counting, some different things, and really talk about as well using them virtually to help you as you're teaching remotely or in a hybrid setting, and how you can do that. Just know that is going to look a little different, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then also, using a variety of instructional strategies to look at how we do this. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways using the manipulatives that you can approach some of these ideas. So of course, we always have this question about why should we use manipulatives, not lose them, although that happens too, unfortunately. But we've learned a few things from this year and from last year and these online learning experiences. And one of those is that students really need that experience of using manipulatives, even if it's in a virtual environment. I know a lot of you have really made an effort to try to still find a way to do that. The challenge there, of course, is that everybody's doing things a little bit differently. So I saw, again, as I, uh, I saw your comments coming in. A lot of you are virtual, some are hybrid, some are face to face. But even in virtual and hybrid, things are going to look a little bit different for you. And part of that is because the way you use those depends on the learning platform that you're using for that remote learning. Some of you are using Google Classroom. Some of you use Canvas or another learning management system. There's just so many different tools out there that people are using. And the way you use the manipulatives really depends on what tool you are using. And the other thing that we have learned, which is really great news, is that you can use them effectively in a virtual environment. A lot of teachers have found, I can do this. So, and Karen, I just saw a comment that you sent in that said teachers love the virtual manipulatives, but it doesn't take the place of a physical manipulative. That's true, but we don't have a lot of options sometimes, unfortunately, in our current environment here. So, some guiding principles and some things I like to share about using manipulatives that we need to keep in mind, whether we're talking about virtual manipulatives or physical manipulatives or whatever it is. We can't just throw manipulatives at students and expect them to get to the right place. They're not going to necessarily draw correct conclusions just because we gave them a manipulative, which is the second bullet. Then the context that we use the manipulative in is what really helps create meaning as students discuss and interact. Now, of course, that's, again, a lot of challenge there for us, trying to get students to engage in this virtual environment and discuss and interact. That's not necessarily an easy thing to do. And so we have to be thoughtful and intentional about how we are using the manipulatives if we want that mathematical learning to occur. Again, we can't just throw the virtual manipulatives at the students and have things work out well, or send them home with a set of physical manipulatives. There needs to be some structure to what's going on there. And then finally, your beliefs as a teacher about manipulatives contribute to how effectively they're used during the lesson. And so we'll talk about that a little bit too as we go through today. And it really does have an impact. Now, the thing is, since you're all here and you're listening to this webinar, you probably believe that manipulatives are going to help, and you want to make that work. And so that's great if you do. So again, let's take a look now. I'm going to jump over to the web here, and we can see this is our Didax virtual manipulatives page, and this is live. Right now we have 19 different virtual manipulative options here on this page. And again, these are free for you to access and use. And depending on how you're using them, there's some different options here for you. Of course, we have some instructions about the manipulatives, how to implement them. We have some FAQs. Again, every platform's a little bit different. Every tool is a little bit different. Every computer is a little bit different, or tablet, or however you're using these. So the manipulatives are web-based. They do rely on an internet connection to load, and then they run on whatever device you're on. You'll find some free activities on here, which we try to keep those updated and get some things out here to help you use the virtual manipulatives. So that's a great place to find them. You'll also get some free manipulatives in that follow-up, or not free manipulatives, free activities in that follow-up email from Ashley. And then there are some embed codes for the virtual manipulatives. So we know that these can help teachers and students as they learn, and they can be embedded in a variety of platforms. Almost any learning management system, you can embed these. If you have a web page or a blog, they can be embedded. There's some platforms that don't allow embedding of an outside tool like that. And we try to work with those folks to make that happen, but that's not always possible. So you can still, of course, link to the tool on the web itself. So if you're familiar with our virtual manipulatives, you may or may not know that we've made some updates. We've done some things the last few months with these. We've added a couple new tools. We added this a larger 10 frames tool, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We've also added a fraction tiles and number line tool into here as well that really help to build that kind of understanding. And we've made some updates as well. We're adding the pencil tool to these because we know it's important that you and or your students be able to write in that space and mark that up. So let's talk a little bit first about Unifix cubes. Of course, Unifix cubes are a great tool. You can do all sorts of things with them. All the way from pre-K through high school, there's things that you can do with Unifix cubes to enhance your math instruction. And that's really a great thing. What I want to look at today first is how I can use these to model addition. And so what I want to look at here is the problem 8 plus 6. And I did set this up ahead of time, but these work very simply. We just drag the cubes out of the box over here, and we can drag as many as we need. Now, I left this one off because I wanted to show you how these go together. When I get it close, it just kind of snaps on there. So you can see here that I have, excuse me, I'm sorry. So what I want to do to solve this problem with my Unifix cubes as I look at this is I want to use the make a 10 strategy. So I have 2 stacks of cubes here. I have a stack of 8 red cubes and a stack of 6 blue cubes. And starting from 8, I want to first make a 10. So I think, okay, how many more cubes do I need on this stack of 8 to make 10? Well, I need 2 cubes. So I'm going to separate those from here. And this is a great part of this tool. I can just separate these 2 cubes and I can move them over here so students can see how that connection happens. And then I can see now I have a 10 and I have 4 more cubes. So I know that 10 and 4 makes 14. So the sum of 8 and 6 is 14. Just a real simple way that I can use the Unifix cubes to model that addition problem. The same idea works for subtraction, but instead of the make a 10 strategy, we'll call it the get to 10 strategy. So let's say that I have 16 and I want to take away 7. So I'm always going to start here with the number that I'm taking away from. So I'm starting with 16 cubes. You can see that. You'll notice in this setup that I have my cubes in sets of 5. Of course, the 5s make it easier for students to differentiate and break down that 10 and see very quickly that there are 10 cubes here. I've got 5 red ones and 5 yellow ones. It's easier than showing just 10 of one color. So I can see here I've got 16 and I want to take away 7. So I'm going to first get to 10. I want to get to 10. I have 16. That means I need to take 6. So I can either, kind of drag this 6 down here. I could use my pencil tool and put an X through it and say, okay, we're going to take that 6 away. You can erase them, but I would really encourage you as you're using these not to do that because we want students to be able to go back and see what we did and see what they did as they interact with the tools as well. And so I wouldn't really erase them, but we can cross them out. We can do some different things. And so now my problem, we said I was doing 16 minus 7. And I know that 7 is 6 and 1 more. So I already took away the 6. That means I need to take away 1 more. So I'm going to take away this 1 more here. I'm just going to cross out this last one here on this stack. And I can see now that what I have left, and I could even separate this if I wanted to. Separate this one. I can see what I have left is 9. So the difference between 16 and 7 is 9, or 16 minus 7 equals 9. Write that a variety of different ways, say it a variety of ways, but really the important thing here is that I'm using the tool to do this. So how can I have students share that kind of thinking virtually? That's really the question. Because obviously for me as the teacher, I can put this up on the screen. I can share this with students when I'm in a call, but what if I want them to interact with it? How can I help them do that? So like we said, that really depends on the tools you're using and how these are embedded for you. Students could use the virtual manipulatives on their own device to demonstrate their thinking. They can either capture a screenshot or a video of their process. If you're using a live meeting tool like Zoom, the students could share their screen, or they could even annotate on your screen and do the crossing out and do different things to show the process that they're going through. If they have physical manipulatives at home, we've seen a lot of people who've sent manipulatives home with students this year to use those. You can have them show you using their camera, as they build and as they go through the steps um, of what they're doing. They can do it live in the meeting. They could record themselves if you're doing it asynchronously, if it's something they're doing not necessarily live. And of course, if none of those options is working out, you can always have students create and share a picture, a representation of their work using that online learning platform, because we know really the manipulatives are kind of the first step to that, to building that understanding through the concrete pictorial abstract sequence. So, we can get them to the point where they're using a picture, they're using some kind of representation to show their work, even if they can't do that. So the question here is, how can you save students' work? I saw that picture come up, and that question come up. And that's really a good question. Again, it depends on your platform and how you are using those tools. So some of the platforms I know allow you to actually capture that. As a teacher, if you're using Zoom, you could capture a screenshot of a student's work as they're doing it, as they're sharing that. Again, it really depends on your platform, and it's a difficult question for me to answer because I don't know exactly how you're implementing those things. So, that's definitely a thing that it kind of has to fit your model and how you're delivering it. And then another question, how do you look at 24 students at once? That's the problem. Yeah, that is kind of a problem. And I think, that it lends itself to more of a class discussion, maybe where you have, a couple of students sharing and maybe not necessarily everybody sharing their work at once. And as an instructor, making that decision about how you're going to review that work and take in that work is part of that planning for instruction and making sure that your instruction is going to support that. All right, so let's take a look at the Rec and Rec tool. This is the 20 bead Rec and Rec. We also have a 100 bead Rec and Rec virtual manipulative. They both work the same. Some of you may have used a Rec and Rec before in your class instruction. It's unfortunately not a tool that a lot of students have at home. So the virtual Rec and Rec can really help with that instruction at home if they're doing remote learning, or even for students who want to practice at home if you're face-to-face and they don't have that. It's a nice option. Now for this example, I want to focus on number sense and decomposing numbers. So one of the activities you can do with your students is, to make something another way, to make a number another way. So let's think about the number 7. So I could show the number 7 on the Rec and Rec like this, and I can just slide these over. Now, a nice question to ask students at this point in the instruction is, how do you know that's 7? And they can respond like you are responding in the chat box. They can, you can identify a couple students to respond, but how do I know that's 7? And they may see that different ways. They may count them all. They may see the 5 and 2 more. They may start at 5 and count on 2 more to get 7. So there's a lot of different ways that they can recognize that that's 7. But now the challenge here comes when I ask students, can you make 7 another way? Can you show me another way to do this that doesn't look like this? And so we might get a variety of different things. I might get a 3 and a 4. So they might see that. We might see somebody who sees, 5 and 2 this way. Or there could be a 6 and a 1, or 1 and 6. So there's lots of different ways that they can do that. And this really reinforces that idea. By having them use the Rec and Rec, they can manipulate those beads, albeit virtually, but they can still move them and see, look, there's lots of different ways I can make 7. And this really gets at that creativity for students to see, just kind of play around with numbers and experience those things. If you're working with older children and larger numbers, like I said, there is the 100 bead Rec and Rec that you can use. In either case, students are most likely going to be modeling this with the virtual manipulatives and either sharing with a picture or a video of their work, or they could do it in a representation, in a drawing of some kind. Because again, they're probably not going to have that physical rec and rec at home that they can be showing you, or making a video at home of that. It's just not a common tool. And they're a little bulky to send home with students. So, all right. And finally, let's take a look at 10 frames. So we can use 10 frames for a variety of concepts, from number recognition and place value to computation. We have two different virtual 10 frame tools, as I showed you. One of them is just 2 10 frames. It goes up to 20. You have the option of showing 1 or 2 frames. And then we have this tool that allows us to put up to 10 frames on the screen. So I could show numbers up to 100 and work with them that way. It really depends on how I'm using it. So let's look at an example of addition. But this time I want to use, rather than the make a 10 strategy we use with the Unifix cubes, this time I want to use a strategy called make a double. So I have an addition problem here. This problem is 9 plus 7. Okay. And I want to use the 10 frames to help me model that. I don't see a double, but I wonder if I can make a double. The 10 frames make it easier for me to see that relationship, and to see that if I move this counter, there we go. Sorry, we had a, all right. I loaded this web page earlier so that we wouldn't have to watch me do this, but it's okay. We're going to go ahead and build it. And all right, so our problem again was 9 plus 7, and I want to use that make a double strategy to add these. So again, I want to be able to see that if I share this counter or move this counter from the 9 down here, I've made a double. Okay? And I can very easily see that you can make a double from 9 and 7. My double is 8 and 8. And as I add 8 and 8 together, I know that fact, 8 plus 8, it's a double. I know that it's 16. And so since 8 and 8 is 16, that tells me that 9 plus 7 is also 16. The nice thing about this is the students can see I don't have any more or any less counters than I started with. So even though these numbers look different, I can see that 9 plus 7 must be the same as 8 plus 8, because I do have that same number of counters. So in terms of remote instruction, there's several ways that I can use these 10 frames, which is really nice. Again, if I'm using Zoom or another, or WebEx or one of those kinds of tools, there are annotation tools that are in there. So let me go back to where we were here. And so I could use those annotation tools in Zoom, which I'm actually going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and use the annotation tools here from Zoom. So you can see what that looks like. But, I could, have students could physically draw on here and say, okay, I'm going to move that one down there, to make 8 and 8. It's not as visual, but it does let them demonstrate and kind of see their thinking in that process. Hang on, there we go. Another way I could use the annotation tools, and I don't know if you've ever used them this way, is if I had 10 frames, so we'll drag one out here. In Zoom, and I think in some of the others, there are stamp tools as well that you can use. There's stamp tools as well that you can use when you're annotating. So students could use these stamps to actually fill in the 10 frame, and could use them in a variety of ways to do that. Let me see here. So let's say I wanted 9. They could actually use the stamp tool to fill in 9, and then they could move these, physically move it with the annotation tool into the other 10 frame if we were doing that. So it's another way that students can interact with this in a live meeting on Zoom using the annotate tools, which are really useful and really helpful sometimes if your students are comfortable with that. That's something you'd probably have to take some time to really model with the students as they are learning to do that and learning to use that tool. Of course, students could also use recording, screenshots, video, those kinds of things to record what they're doing and share that with you. They could create a pictorial representation. Of course, that's really straightforward as well, to have a 10 frame and just be able to represent in pictures and share that with you. And so these tools provide you with some ways that you can still reach students, still get them to interact with the mathematics in a meaningful way. With those virtual tools, even though you're distanced from them, and really do that. I think the most important thing to remember is that whether we're face-to-face or virtual, that we need to find ways to help students interact with the manipulatives in the course of the math instruction. So I hope some of these ideas are helpful to you. And so I do want to ask you a question now, and you'll see a pop-up come up on your screen. For the poll, but I really want you to rate your comfort level when it comes to teaching with manipulatives in general. And you could be virtual, it could be anything. We talked at the beginning of the session about how important your role is in helping students make the connections to the content. So it's important that as teachers, we're comfortable using the manipulatives and understanding those concepts and connections as well. Okay. So again, if you have that up on your screen there, and you can just make one of those choices real quick. And all right, so we've got almost everybody voted there. I'm going to go ahead and close this. So nobody said they weren't comfortable at all, and that's great. The majority of you said that you were somewhat comfortable, or that you felt confident with using the manipulatives when it comes to teaching. And again, that doesn't really surprise me. You came here today to learn about using manipulatives in a virtual environment. And so manipulatives are something that's on your mind. And about 12% of you said that you're a pro, which is really awesome. And so I'm going to figure out who that is, because I could use some tips. So I appreciate your responses to this. And you know, part of the reason I asked that question, like I said, we need to be comfortable teaching with manipulatives and making those connections. And so one of the things that we've done this last year at Didax is we've created some professional development courses about teaching with manipulatives. These are short courses. They're about 2 hours each. Each course is focused on a single manipulative. They're completely online. They're asynchronous. They're available anytime. So it's the kind of thing that you can go and access, and you feel like, oh, you know, I really don't know a lot about teaching with the Rec and Rec. Maybe I can go do this and learn a little bit more about how that works. And so we'll share that link with you as well here at the end of the session. And Ashley, you can throw it in the chat as well if you want. But these courses, again, like I said, they're short, they're easy to do, and they're really geared towards helping you do that. So right now there's 6 courses up there. We have Unifix, cubes, 10 frames, and the Rec and Rec, all 3 of which we talked about today. But we also have some courses about using base 10 blocks for multiplication, teaching fraction concepts using fraction tiles and number lines, teaching with color tiles, which are all, you know, really designed to help you. Now, the great thing about this is they're really teacher friendly. So these are $40 per course. It's a pretty easy thing to interact with and get into. If, like I said, if there's something you just want to improve a little bit, or you'd like to feel a little more confident with one of those tools, easy to go sign up, take a course. You can even get them some discounting if you buy 3 courses or 6 courses as well. So it's a tool for you, again, if you need more resources to get out there and do this and really feel more confident with the manipulatives. We want you to do that, because we do feel like it is so important to make those connections and to help students have those experiences with the manipulatives. And so that's the kind of thing that you'll find as we go through this. So let's see. As we come to the end here of our meeting, I just want you in the chat one more time to share something. You can either share something you learned today about manipulatives, one way that you're going to incorporate manipulatives into an instruction, or one thing that you're planning to do next week in class that you weren't planning to do before you came. So pick one of those. You don't have to respond to all three, but if you just want to share something, that's great, because that kind of reflection helps us think about how we can move forward and how we can go on. So Ashley, while they're doing that, did we have any open questions?
I've been answering everything so far, but I think there was one question, and let me see if I can find it now. Oh, there was a question about, is it possible to give each student a set in something like whiteboard.fi?
That's a great question. Like I said, there's so many different platforms. I'm not familiar with that one, but we'll check it out and see if there's anything we can add to the FAQs about that, or I would also encourage you to get in touch with us directly, and we'll see if we can take a look and see what that means. Yes, so maybe.
And then there is a question about if we have any courses using algebra tiles, or will we have any courses using algebra tiles?
Not yet, hopefully.
Let's see. We have a couple of questions coming in. Will Didax ever incorporate a share feature? I think with our virtual manipulatives.
There's always discussions about how we can improve these and how we can make them better. And I know that those discussions are ongoing. So, if you have ideas, we're always open to hearing those ideas about ways that these can be improved and things we can do. And I know the share feature is definitely something that's on that list of discussion items. So. There was a question about whether you'll be able to see this if you arrived late. Yeah, absolutely. We did record it, so it will be sent out. You'll get a link for that. Ashley, you want to talk about that? I don't know what your timeline is there.
Yeah, so you'll most likely get it later tonight, if not tomorrow morning. First thing tomorrow morning, you'll receive an email that will include a link with the recorded version and then some activities that Matt has provided for you guys. And then we'll also send you guys the link for our professional development courses, so you guys can browse around there. And if you guys have any questions for district pricing, I know that kind of came up throughout the webinar, Matt, that you weren't aware of. If you have questions about district pricing, using purchase orders, titles, things like that, Matt is a great resource for you guys, and he can help answer any of those questions you guys may have. So I'll also provide Matt's email in the follow-up, so you guys can contact him directly if you have any of those specific questions.
And I did just put up, of course, our homepage, didax.com, where you'll find a link to the virtual manipulatives right there on the front. And then the link to the PD site, which you can also get to from our homepage, but you can get there directly at pd.didax.com. And my email's up there as well. So.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions before we sign off and give you guys the rest of your afternoons or evenings back?
Well, we appreciate your time and appreciate you coming today. And we hope that you can go out there and do some great things with your students. So thanks so much, and good luck.
Have a good one, guys.